Every time we think we're out, Sheldon, they drag us back in. For the first time ever, the challenge, Champs vs. Stars, they had a reunion. So we thought that we were going to have a 3-week break. And if you listen to the end of last week's episode of You Killed It, we were talking big 3-week break game. But no, we're back. My name is John Chidley Hill.
And as always, my name is Sheldon Alexander.
And this is You Killed It, the podcast about the challenge. One more week of Champs vs. Stars. I just want to say off the top, it is strange that they had a reunion. I'm a little surprised.
So here's the thing. When I first heard they were having a reunion, I kind of thought, how good is this going to be? This is probably going to be a waste of like an hour. You know what I mean? Like, this is just filler, so there's not that much of a gap between the end of Champs vs. Stars.
But it was heated.
Yeah, and I was pleasantly surprised. And you know what? I'm almost upset at myself because after all of the praise that we've given the producers and MTV for how they put together this season of Champs vs. Stars, maybe we shouldn't have been surprised that it was a good reunion. And I would say this reunion was probably better than the other reunions on normal seasons of the challenge.
Oh, yeah, I'd say so. There was some real passion. The other thing that I thought was surprising was that I guess it's because it's a smaller cast, that's the word.
Yep.
But they...
Words.
Who needs them? But they brought everybody back. Like, Corey was back. And, like, people... Basically, everyone who was... basically everyone who was on the show was back on, except for Arian Foster and Hennessy, who I think were both suffering from being embarrassed.
Yeah, and I mean, what would Arian... I don't think Arian would have much to add, and Hennessy probably was just like, a hard pass. I do like the voiceover, the awkward voiceover they had at the beginning.
Oh, yeah. I noticed that, too, where the Miz is like... and then Poochie went back to his home planet. Like, just the...
Well played. Before we get to the actual reunion show, though, John.
Yes.
I had an idea, and I don't know, do you want to do this before we talk about the reunion episode or after? And what I did was we posted the podcast, as we normally do, in the Facebook group, on the Reddit group, and I usually pose it with a question, right? To, get people's feedback, and sometimes we read the responses on the show. And so the question I posted this week on Reddit was, did you like the finale of Champs vs. Stars? I thought it was dope and almost on par with the regular seasons. And we got a lot of feedback, gained a lot of traction on Reddit. A lot of good responses that seem to agree with us. And, I think we should read a couple of them because it just relates more to the season of the challenge as opposed to the reunion, obviously. So do you want to do that now, or do you want to do it after we talk about the reunion? What do you think?
No, let's do it now because, in order. We also have a couple of tweets to read out, too. So
I like it.
Let's start things off with that reader feedback.
So again, the main topic was, did you like the finale of Champs vs. Stars? And much like we just mentioned about the reunion, everything about this season was really good, and it really surpassed expectations, right? And I thought, we were talking about it on last week's episode, just how good we thought the finale was, and it appears that the people agreed. I got someone here named Scott Chief Baker who says, yeah, the finale was definitely one of the better finals lately. It actually required some teamwork, brains, and brawn. More importantly, it wasn't overly drawn out, which is a theme I think we'll get to. Cam Sim says, I agree. It was very well thought out and contained just the right amount of drama. The whole season was pretty good. It was considerably less hokey than the last two seasons because they actually casted people who wanted to compete and performed well. I also like the integration of the champs/stars. It definitely was good in its own right, instead of just being a placeholder until the quote unquote real challenge returned. Yeah?
Yeah,
Thoughts? What do you think? What do you
I
think?
agree. I think, I mean, we've discussed this all season about how much we liked the red team versus the blue team and the mixing it up like that. And also, I think the competitive nature also helped. I would not consider this a full season of the challenge. Like, I don't think it's
No? Okay.
psychologically as difficult because they are
True.
in a hotel. They do have their own rooms. They do get to uh, reach out to family and
Go out at
friends.
night and
Yeah,
party,
yeah, exactly. Uh,
but like on their own volition without
and they
cameras.
do have their own privacy. Like, I think that part of what makes the real challenge is that isolation, like that extreme psychological pressure that they're under. But that said, this was very good, and this was a very competitive season. I think what the uh, quality of the stars in terms of their competitive drive, although we learned that maybe Drake is not so competitive, uh, it's interesting. And in particular, Casper and Louise made the difference. Booby too, a little bit, but Casper and
Yep.
Louise especially really were the difference makers on this season.
No, I totally agree. Totally agree. I'm going to whip through a couple more comments here. And
Sure.
as always, this is something we love to do on the podcast when we do get a lot of feedback. So for sure, send us your comments via Twitter or respond in the chat groups. We love hearing from you, the fans. But let's see. I got someone here. I'm going to go with GNXO. Says, we got to see a final all in one day and found out the results without watching the reunion. Pretty good. Tony mentioned he thought the Vendettas final was harder because they ran close to a marathon, but this one felt like a 5K. However, I think on TV this finale was much more fun to watch than Vendettas, regardless of the distance. Another one, Uncanny Doom says, I think one of the biggest issues with the finals for me personally is when a lot of the running to the point where most of what we watch is just running and cast confessionals about how hard it is. The CVS Challenge versus Stars, I like that short
Oh
form, by the
yeah,
way.
this is a show that
Finale was
needs
great.
a short form.
CBS, yeah, it works. It works. It took one episode, had a fun, balanced challenges all along the way, and it was really anyone's game and came down to a few strategic choices in the eating section that sealed it.
Yes.
Someone else says, best editing I've seen so far of any episode. Me being a producer nerd, I appreciate other people noticing things like that, how well it was edited and the flow of it being really good. So I appreciate that comment. One day, another person agreeing with the one day final being great.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that was a big thing, right? Like, I think, they went down this line of extending the finals to 2 episodes and then stretching that out and then stretching out, okay, well, now we'll stretch out when you find out. Then it was, oh, well, you'll find out during the reunion, which is a Survivor bit, right?
Yeah.
Survivor, a Big Brother bit where you find out who wins during the reunion shows. And I think they sort of stretched that out. And then it kind of just got way too far, right? And it was good for once to go back to normal, for lack of a better term. So I thought that was really cool. But it seems like a lot of people kind of, like, they agreed with us in the sense that it was good that it stayed to 1 episode for the finale, but also just within that 1 episode, it was really, really good. And at certain points, you thought different teams were going to win. And that's a great job of editing and storytelling.
Yeah.
So
I will say about the length, the first season of Champs versus, I mean, it was Champs versus Pros, but in my mind, that's season 1 of CVS. It was 6 episodes. Season 2 was 8 episodes, and this season was 11 episodes, including the reunion. And this season, the 11 episode season, seemed shorter than last season, the 8 episode season. That said, boy, I really like that neat and tidy 6 episode season. Like that was really like tightly done. Although had well, no, it had a lot of drama because Louise Hazel and Lolo Jones disliked each other so much, and Lolo was such a head case. But
Yeah.
I thought I really enjoyed this season. And I think it's the right length. I think 10 episodes plus a reunion, not just of this, but of the regular challenge, is really preferable. Like I think that's the sweet spot of length, is 10 episodes. What do you think the ideal season length is for the show?
To me, it's not so much about like what the ideal season length is, because, and again, this is going to sound way too like inside or producer nerdy, but I feel like when you're putting together a show and when you're watching a show, if you're putting the show together, pardon me, you know how long the episode should be. You know how many episodes should be in a season, right?
Yeah.
Because the content dictates how many episodes you have, right? So how many challenges you film, that'll tell you. But then if there's more outside drama that might extend or might impact the length of a certain episode, maybe we can stretch that out into 2 episodes. We can stretch, because obviously you're going to start off with, when you're putting the show together, the length is going to be decided by, okay, so we anticipate the finale is going to be 1 episode, and then we have X amount of eliminations. So however many eliminations we have, that's going to dictate how many episodes there are, right?
Mm-hmm.
But based off of that, after that, it's the content is going to dictate how long it is. And to me, there's no like ideal number. The content will always tell you.
Yeah, I guess I'm still stinging from Dirty 30, which just never seemed to end. Like, yeah. I'm going to look it up, but that season was far too long and depressing. Like, obviously...
Yeah, they had too many... What was the twist called when people kept coming back?
Oh.
I don't remember what it was called. There was a name for it. I don't remember what it was called, but... That was a thing that happened too many times. The Redemption House.
Yeah, the Redemption House
Was that it?
Happened way too much. And they had that one episode that was devoted to what's her face? Camilla's racist remarks to Leroy. And like that deserved an entire episode to itself. Mm-hmm. But it was really a downer. Like it was very... I mean, it's dumb to say, like, oh, racism was so hard to watch. But, like, it kind of sucked the life out of the season.
Yeah, no, for sure. For sure. No, totally agree. Just a couple more things here, and then I'll let you read some tweets, John. Monroe131 says, I thought it had the right amount of drama and stupidity. I would gladly watch Booby, Casper, and Louise on a real challenge. I think they would do well.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm not sure that Booby would make great TV.
No. He's very low-key, just in the cut. Like, I think this was kind of the right, perfect season for Booby.
Yeah.
Right? I think he would do well in something like this. Casper, do you know what? I feel like, it'd be an interesting concept, but again, what you said earlier about just the different elements of what a real season of the challenge is, I don't know if Casper and Louise would do well on that, because I feel like so much more of the real season is adapting to the craziness that we saw in the reunion of like Kayla screaming at Jose screaming at Shane screaming back. Like, do you know what I mean? There's so much more of that drama, or like Aneesa being mad that this person didn't say, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's a whole other element that's equally as important as all of the gameplay.
Yeah.
And I don't know if Casper, Louise, and especially Booby would be up for that. For how long do they film these seasons for?
6 weeks.
Like a regular season?
6 weeks.
That's a long time.
I
don't know if they could do
I
that.
will say... we already discussed this with Wes, but Louise, not that she's dramatic, but she causes drama, right? Like, she was at the heart of the drama in CVS Season 1 with how she fixed the vote, her beef with Lolo Jones, and then like she has a subtle way of getting under people's skin without her flipping out or shouting or screaming. Like she would, I think, be good for that challenge mix because she's kind of different. She's a different kind of animal, but she still, in my mind, makes for really good TV.
And there's one more I want to read for you to get your take on this because I'm interested to get your opinion, John. But this person says, it was way better than the recent regular seasons. All these recent stupid ass timed checkpoints finals have been super imbalanced. Quote, flip a card, you either dig a hole through clay for 1 hour or just go ahead. Or, quote, walk into a smoky room where the greatest difference in time between you and someone else is the worst of the three circumstances would be like 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Close quote. Yeah. What do you make of that?
I agree. I think that the final on Vendettas was not good. The Johnny Bananas and what was her name? DJ Mel, Melissa. I thought they were bad. It was a bad turning point.
It was a waste.
It was not just the card game,
Bad
but
use
the
of a twist.
easiest card game.
Yeah. And again, that was my thing where I wanted them to rig it. You rig it for TV, like you obviously rig it. Yes, I remember that. And sorry, let me rephrase that. I'm rigging it. I'm talking about as a producer, I would rig it. Viewers wouldn't know that we rigged it, but I would definitely rig it as a producer. Sorry. Sorry. So I will pass it on to you, John. But yes, as always, people, let us know what you think of the podcast, what you think of the show, what our takes were terrible or horrible, or what you liked on the show, because we like to discuss that and kind of get a vibe. And you know what I found interesting and why I wanted to read all those things, John? Because I thought that, after last week's podcast, I was like, man, I've been gushing about this season a lot. Like, am I going overboard? Like, because what I don't want to do, I don't want to come off as like almost like a corporate shill for MTV, right? Like we do this for fun. Like there's nobody paying us. We're not trying to get anywhere by doing this. No. You know what I mean? And after we did last week's podcast, I was like, man, I've been super positive about this whole season of Champs versus Stars, which is like the fake made up challenge, and I didn't want to come off like that, but I was like, man, and then I read all these comments. I was like, oh, okay, so it's not just me. Cool. Other people seem to really be in on it too and really seem to like it. So that's why I found it interesting because I was like, okay, it reaffirmed my thoughts.
Yeah. And I think it's worth saying that on the Facebook Challenge Fans group, there's been a lot of talk about how this season was great, was as good as a regular season of the Challenge. So I think that's the general consensus. But you just mentioned you just alluded to if you were a producer, you would be fixing parts, and by fixing I mean like helping create the outcome. And Amanda Lakin, Amanda, I hope I said your last name right, tweeted 2 tweets at us. Her thoughts could not be contained in 280 characters to us about Champs vs. Stars. She asks, do you guys think the producers could have intervened during the eating portion to tell Casper and Louise to slow down, since they had a big lead? Seems weird he was so laid back after being so competitive in the other stages. I feel like the producers wanted it to be a closer race and have all 3 teams be at the final puzzle stage at the same time. Maybe they at least told Casper and Louise what dishes to choose because they knew it would be more food. Casper also responded to someone on Twitter saying that it was an edit. What do you think of this? I mean, we replied to Amanda on Twitter, but I think we should, for the sake of all our listeners, give our responses to Amanda again.
For sure. And shouts to you, Amanda, because this was a very good point. And as I commented on Twitter, I'd never really thought of that as being a thing. I didn't think about it like that. And it's an interesting point because, we did talk about the fact that it seemed really weird that they had such a big lead. Casper's really nonchalant about them being passed by both teams, right, in the eating challenge. But here's the thing that I will say. You almost don't want to ruin the integrity. Like, if I was, as a producer, right, I wouldn't want to ruin the integrity of what was actually going to happen, right? So let's go back to the Johnny Bananas, DJ Mel example, right?
Mm-hmm.
When I'm saying I would have rigged that challenge, I'm saying I would have rigged the cards so that I'm putting the cards in order to guarantee that someone is going to go over, or to increase the likelihood that they're playing high-low, right? That's what they're playing?
Yep.
I'm going to increase the odds that someone is going to lose in high-low. So I'm not directly saying, okay, well, Casper and Louise are way too far ahead. Let me slow them down. That to me is a little bit different because the other part of that is it's also not that entertaining. Do you know what I mean? Like, they're being passed, but they're being passed like sitting down and eating. Like, that's not necessarily as entertaining television. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And also you'd be ruining the integrity because they've actually worked to get to the front of the line, and now you're going to tell them, oh no, you would have to blatantly tell them, oh no, here's some terrible food that's going to take you guys longer to eat. I don't know. And I also think, as we discussed last week, John, the more likely scenario is that Casper and Louise, not being used to the eating challenges on the show, were more likely to take food that they were used to eating and thinking that would be the strategy instead of, eating something crappier, but it's less food.
Yeah, I think that they made an honest mistake, and I think it was right there in Amanda's tweets, because I agree with her. It's weird that Casper was so laid back, but he was so competitive through the other stages. Having spoken to the man, I don't think he'd be able to turn off the competitive nature, and that's one of the reasons why he made such a good competitor.
Exactly.
I don't think he could chill out on that.
Also too, sorry, going back to the card example, right? If I'm the producer and I'm doing something like that, again, only the production staff would know that that's a thing, right? Only the production staff is going to know, okay, we rigged the card, so now whoever comes in first, I'm increasing the odds that they'd lose, and they're going to have to go dig a hole or whatever the thing was, right? In this scenario that Amanda's talking about, Casper and Louise would have to somewhat be in on it on some level, right?
Yeah.
Because you're now, right? Like, they would have to, they picked the food that they were eating. So if you're the producers and you're telling them, hey, pick the donuts, I'd kind of be like, wait, why am I picking the donuts? Like that? No, I don't want to pick the donuts. Do you know what I mean? Like, they would have to be on some level in on it, which, as you just said, I can't really see them agreeing to that because that'd be kind of weird. And I don't think they just want to give up the loss like that.
No.
Plus, it'd probably be a better storyline if Casper and Louise won. No.
Yeah, I think it would be. I think it would help them in the long run bring the next generation of stars onto the show,
Definitely.
I also think it's more likely that Wes threw it than they somehow got Casper and Louise to do it. And I'm not saying that Casper. I'm not saying that Wes threw it. I'm just saying it's more likely that he threw it by choosing the wrong food. But I don't think even then I don't think he did. I don't think Wes threw it. I'm just saying, odds are more likely. And then finally, I saved the best for last. Because last episode we threw it out to people to ask, well, I did. If having a hoverboard makes you douchey.
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
And as far as I saw, only one person replied, which I think is a credit to my stance that no one defended the hoverboard.
No.
So Heather on Twitter says, as a "you killed it" listener, I would like to weigh in on hoverboards. They're dumb as fuck. Sorry, I should have told you to cover your virgin ears. I know you hate swearing, Sheldon.
I do.
They definitely...
That is not true.
They definitely were all the rage here too. And then in brackets she had the northeastern United States. And I never understood why.
Right.
And
that was my thing, right? I was saying, like, I don't really get it. I never had a hoverboard, but it was definitely a thing.
It was definitely a thing. It was a time and place where they were super popular. But, like, I'm still sticking to my guns. Even when they were, I'll say, at the height of their popularity, I think that it was, like, if you saw someone riding a hoverboard, you could basically automatically judge them by the content of their character.
That's funny.
That's funny. I'm not going to name names, but I have a real world example of how someone who has a hoverboard is almost automatically a douchebag.
That's pretty funny. Okay.
All right. This is name droppy, but I was covering the Blue Jays, I guess 2 years ago when hoverboards were popular, the Toronto Blue Jays. And I was trying to interview one of the Toronto Blue Jays 3 years ago, I guess, about how good Josh Donaldson is as a player. And he had just gotten, this player I was trying to interview, had just gotten a hoverboard. And he refused to get off the hoverboard while I interviewed him. And was going back and forth in the Blue Jays locker room, and I had to try to keep pace with him as I tried to interview him. And, like, hoverboards go faster than walking. So, like, I wasn't getting winded, but I was definitely having to exert myself just staying beside this player as we were talking about something that, like, he should be all in on, which was his teammates' candidacy for being MVP. So that's what I'm saying. Like, if you have a hoverboard, you're a douchebag. Sorry, Casper.
That's pretty funny.
Sorry, Casper. It's a bad look. And the fact that Casper has 3 hoverboards and, like, still owns them, I think only helps my case and hurts him.
That's pretty funny. I mean, I'm not as, like, angry as you or Heather about people with hoverboards. I'm just like, okay, cool. But yeah, no, that's super funny. Like, I can see your point. I'll say that much. I can see your point.
Thank you.
And no, for the record, I do not have a hoverboard. It never did.
Well, you're not a douchebag.
So I guess we should switch gears to the actual reunion, because there's some people that probably came off as douchebags during this reunion.
Yes.
I'm gonna start with, and I mean, I didn't mean to make this transition at all, but the first thing I had written down was, why does Shane have green eyebrows? That looks fucked up.
He looked like an Oompa Loompa from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Like,
yeah, I don't know if douchey is a way to call that. I know that's a segue that I'm using here, but it did look kind of fucked up, no?
It did. Like, did he lose a bet?
Do you know what my actual thought is?
What's that?
My actual thought, and this is probably unfair, but this is an adult podcast, so I'm going to say it anyways. I was reminded of the wise words of a man that once said, cocaine's a hell of a drug, man.
Nah.
And, hey, I don't know if that's a thing. I don't know if Shane dabbles or partakes in any of those drugs. I probably shouldn't assume that. But if I was to do some, like, C grade level investigations as to why someone would dye their eyebrows green, I'm going to start with drugs.
Yeah. I mean,
that's where I'm starting.
Yeah. I see, here's the thing. I think Shane is a handsome man. I think he's got like a good jawline, pretty good hair, you know, takes care of himself. He's in good shape. Why would you...
I'm like, where are you going with
What I'm saying is, why would you then ruin your look by dyeing your eyebrows, and just your eyebrows? Like, I'm not sure I've ever seen anyone do that. Ever. Have you, like, let's just start with that point. Have you ever seen someone dye just their eyebrows?
To be honest, sorry, I just got super distracted. I had the episode on right now in the background as we're recording this podcast, and I was super distracted because I was thinking of, as you were bringing this up, like why he would dress like that or why he would do that. I was thinking to myself, like, oh, I was taking in the looks of everyone else on the show, and I was just like, oh, the female cast members of this episode, bravo. And it's varying levels of casual to, you know, stunting.
Yeah.
But
yeah, well, they're I mean, that's classic challenge reunion, right? Where some people look like they just rolled out of bed, some people fucking bring it. And you know what I liked? While we're on the topic of how people dress for the reunion, I liked that Casper and Louise coordinated. Yes. And I like that Casper had to leave early to catch a flight, and we see that he changed into just like regular dude clothing.
Yeah.
But in other words, he brought that suit just for the reunion. Like, and like went to these lengths knowing that he was then going to have to like carry his suit on the plane. And like, I don't know where he was headed, if he had use for the suit wherever he was headed, but like, I really respect and appreciate the lengths he went to bring the high heat in his outfit and to match Louise for the reunion.
He's probably flying private anyway, so it doesn't matter, right?
I know, but just that he was carrying it with him.
No, I'm joking. I have no idea. Yeah. No, for sure. Nope. Shout out to that for sure. I thought it was super interesting, but the reason why I think he had, sorry, to go back to Shane, I know I'm all over the place. I apologize for taking this conversation all over the place because you're asking direct questions and I'm just like answering completely different questions. So I apologize. And I will go back to your original question about Shane's eyebrows. I think that it leads into my overall thought of this entire episode, or just the reunion shows in general. And I think he did this because certain people come on these reunion shows because they want to be the star of the reunion shows, right?
Mm-hmm.
And their direct goal is to make a scene. And yes, dyeing your eyebrows green is definitely a way to make a scene. But the interesting part of this, and I think the overall theme of not only this reunion, but all reunions, is watching how that contrasts to other people, right? You and I are obviously friends or friends. Hope to be friends, but more fans of Wes.
Yeah.
That was a Freudian slip. I meant to say fans of Wes, right? So we understand that Wes was a massive part of the season. Obviously, there's a lot of work Wes did behind the scenes to make these things work. But with that said, Wes was very quiet during this entire episode, right?
Yeah.
And what I gathered from that is, between him, even Louise and Casper, and now obviously there's editing, and I'm sure they could have had their own moments or outbursts or whatever, but they seemed so calm and cool. And to me, what that shows is that was a smart take of the flip side of what Shane does, or what Kayla was doing, in terms of, I'm not coming on this reunion show to like yell and scream, because what happens in those instances? Well, your point is going to get edited.
Yeah.
Right? Your point that you're making when you're screaming back and forth in an argument, the full conversation is never going to be put on TV. So you have the opportunity to be taken out of context in a really massive way. So not only now are you arguing and yelling like an idiot, But now you're yelling like an idiot out of context. And so what's the best way to avoid that? It's just to sit quietly, answer questions in a calm way, don't get into any screaming matches with anyone. And I just feel that Wes, Casper, Louise, even CT for the most part, but they really came off really well.
Yeah.
Even Tony was quiet as fuck during this whole thing, right? But they all come off really well in this, whereas like Shane and Jose and Kayla are like yelling and screaming, and even Mama got yelling a bit, but at least she was making good points, right? She didn't get taken out of context, right? Like she spoke and made a very contrite point, which is the opposite of what I just did. But I hope that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I also, there was one suit in my mind, I thought it was a super obvious edit where they had fans in the crowd ask questions, which I really liked. I really liked that format.
The fans had good questions.
They
too.
did. To the point that I wondered if they'd been fed questions. But
yes, if I was a producer, I'm definitely vetting. You would vet
questions
for sure before it happens anyways.
For sure vet, but like I almost...
You're only going to air the good questions too.
That's true. But someone asked Devin about his confrontation with Hennessy, and it seemed super obvious to me that Devin gave a much longer answer, and that there was back and forth, because he went from like sitting comfortably, like sort of relaxed between Lil Mama and Jose, and then like his body language was completely changed when they when they zeroed in on his answer, and it wasn't a smooth transition in terms of like there wasn't like a pan to him or anything. So I think that he warmed to the subject, or maybe there was back and forth between him and the fan who asked him a question.
Yeah. I also think too, John, and I don't know this is just my assumption, and it's one of the things if I was producing a show, I would definitely be super conscious of, right?
Yeah.
And it would be, I don't want to make any of the stars look too bad. So even if something was going on, and Jose is basically like just a character on the challenge now, right?
Yeah.
And he's coming from Big Brother, so it's not really like he's a star per se in the same way that, let's say, Drake Bell is, or Casper or Louise or Boobie Gibson. You know what I mean? Like those people are, I guess to use Shane's own words, famous in their own right, if that makes sense. Like their level of fame comes from something outside of a reality show, right? So I wouldn't want to, I'd be so conscious of, let's say Devin was just crushing Hennessy, right? And going super over the top with it. I would hesitate to put that in the show, not only for Hennessy's sake, but for whoever the next stars are that we're trying to get on next season.
Yeah.
Right? Because I don't want to have a situation where it's like T.O., right? Where, who was it? Was it Casper talking about that? Or how, like, just a perception of how that went off, it probably would stop someone else from wanting to go on the show. Right?
Yes.
Because that person they went on, and it looked really bad on T.O.'s part. And so I would be super conscious as a producer to not have that go on. So I could see why, even if Devin was making the greatest points ever where he's crushing Hennessy, and she definitely deserved to be crushed because that was a terrible outburst, right? But I would hesitate to show, 5 straight minutes of just crushing her.
Yeah, and
in my opinion.
And I mean, it's not surprising, but Devin's response was very measured and fair, where he, you heard it. He said, for those of our listeners who did not watch the reunion, he said, "Hey, I treat the way I am on the show is the way I am in real life. And if one of my buddies was an hour and a half late, I'd say, 'Yo, man, what the fuck?' Which is exactly what I did to Hennessy. Yeah. And I treat everyone the same, regardless of gender, sexual orientation. So, like, if CT had been that late, I would have done it. And that's fair."
Yeah, makes total sense. The
other, I think, big blow... Well, other big blow up in the first sort of half of the show was that Aneesa was really upset that not all the cast had sent her a text to see how her leg was doing after she broke it. Specifically, CT. What did you think of this?
I thought this was a super interesting little back and forth, right? Because again, for such a short season of the challenge, when they started talking about it, I was like, oh yeah, I kind of forgot about that, which, you know, was kind of shocking because, again, it's such a short season, but it just tells you how good the season was, that so many things happened, right? There's so many different little storylines, and it was interesting because I'm going to agree with both sides because I understand both sides. I understand, you know, Aneesa kind of feeling like, how'd CT not check up on me in terms of, you know, is my ankle okay? But I also understand CT's point of view where it's like, man, I don't even know what I would say. Do you know what I mean? Like, you feel so bad, and when you know he feels so bad that he hurt her ankle and, you know, she obviously had to leave the show, you know he felt so bad about it, and it'd be so tough, and, you know, it probably would have been such an awkward and difficult thing for him to do. Now, should he, and like, even if he does just send a text, as she said, that still kind of seems underwhelming, no? Do you know, right? Like,
yeah,
it's tough. And the reason why I say I agree with CT is because I don't know exactly how I would react, because I don't know what the right response would be, because I would also feel so extremely bad. But with that said, CT did make a lot of other good points about just like, you know, Aneesa was saying that she doesn't feel any sense of allegiance to the other stars, or sorry, to the other champs, right? Because they just continuously rip her for not being a good player. And I understand her point, but I understand CT's point as well, that she kind of plays both sides, which she does, right? But everyone has their own strategy of how they're going to succeed in the game, and that's just her strategy. And does it work? No, but I understand it and I get it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, like, she was clearly hurt, but
definitely.
What's my thing in a situation like this is, what's to stop her from shooting him a text and be like, hey man, kind of fucked up I haven't heard from you. Like, why wait until the reunion? You know what I mean?
Again, though, some people want to have their moments on the reunion show, right? And I think that could be one of those things where she kind of knew, okay, I'm going to bring this up during the reunion. The fact that, like, everyone's throwing shade at me for not being a good player, and then I get hurt by trying my hardest and nobody says anything to me. You know, I kind of think that's a definite thing. You know, that's a definite game plan, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
That Aneesa had coming into this, that she was definitely going to bring it up.
Yeah, I have to say, I think it's unfair that she has a reputation as being a bad competitor. Because she's pretty good. Like, from what I've seen on
she tries hard.
She tries hard. And she's... The thing is, she has a limited skill set. Like, we haven't really...
Which we all do.
Yeah, we all do. Except CT, basically. But she's not great at stamina, and in fairness, I don't know that she's ever even made a final. So like, I've never seen her have to run a distance. But that said, she tries super hard, and it seems like she's pretty easy to get along with. Like, she seems fun. So I don't know how. I mean, it's so hard to shake a reputation in any circumstance, not just on the challenge.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I totally agree with that. It was definitely an interesting thing, but it was also just cool for me because I was like, I totally forgot that happened. And I would feel a certain way too if I was Aneesa. So I understand where she's coming from, but as I said, also understand where CT's coming from. On the flip side, I didn't really understand where Ashley was coming from in this entire episode. And I mean, I guess really for the season. But what I do want to bring up is, how cool was it, John, that, you know, they asked Ashley why she was so mad, and Casper essentially brought up exactly what he explained to us gave us the inside scoop in the interview that we did with Casper to let us know. I thought that was kind of cool that now we're watching the reunion special and hearing him explain stuff that he's already told us, exclusively on our podcast. I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah. I did. I appreciate that. Little mad that Louise Hazel's new podcast, Slay Sunday, got a shout out, and our podcast didn't. But I guess we'll just have to keep working at it. And
we're also not on the show, John.
Not yet.
Like, Louise is actually on the challenge show.
We're not right? on the show yet.
Now, if I was Derek, I'd be super mad.
Yes, that's true.
Right?
Although I have a feeling, I don't listen to other challenge podcasts. I consume enough of the challenge as is. Mm-hmm. Yep. But from what I've seen of people's comments, Derek's podcast is perhaps less professional than Louise's.
Okay.
Like my understanding.
I haven't listened to Derek's, but yeah, people, let us know. Let us know what's going on Derek's podcast.
Yeah, tell us about,
and we'll read some comments. I have no idea what's going on Derek's podcast. The way that you put it was perfect. Like, I'm good with my challenge content, right? And I don't really. I like the conversation that we have. I like the conversations that we get to read about in terms of, how people respond and interact with us, that we read online and read people's comments and stuff. That's good enough for me in terms of my challenge intake for a week.
Yeah, that's enough for me. And like, I follow a bunch of the challenge people on Twitter and on Instagram. I watch all the shows. We talk about it for at least an hour every week. I know that you have this experience too. People, because of our podcast, come up and talk to me a lot about it, like friends or coworkers. People who I didn't realize were challenge fans will be like, "Oh shit! Like I see you got this podcast," and like, which I love. Like I'm not complaining, but like I don't need to add on to all that content in my life.
Nope. I hear you. Do you know what else I didn't really need in my life? It was the Shane and Jose back and forth.
No.
And I did not need any of that. And the reason is, okay, as I stated earlier, different people clearly come on the reunion shows for different reasons. Some people want to be seen. Some people want to argue. And I definitely take the route of Wes, because we know Wes has a lot to say, but he's very calculated in being very quiet. And I'll take this back to, if you know me well enough, you know who said this quote. Okay?
Yeah.
But a wise man once said, "A wise man told me don't argue with fools, because people from a distance can't tell who is who." I've always thought that was like such a great quote.
It's a great quote.
Because in this instance, right, they're both yelling and screaming about who knows what, because we don't even really know, because they're just yelling back and forth. And like, I really can't tell who's a fool, but they both look like fools, right? And it's just like, what is even happening right now? And Jose is like lifting up his shirt saying, "Of course I don't want to be you," and something clearly happened, but the problem is I don't even really care what actually happened. Do you know what I mean? And both of them just came off as so super annoying. There's no reason for it. They're both just super salty at each other and super loud and super obnoxious and super rude. And it was just annoying. I was annoyed. Definitely annoyed. If we were not doing a podcast on it, I probably would have changed the channel or fast forwarded through to the next part. What did you make of their little tiff?
I think, as always, one of the things you have to keep in mind when they're filming these shows, when they're filming CBS in particular, is that you have to keep in mind who's on the next season of the challenge. Because the timeline here is they filmed CBS, then people went away for the for Final Reckoning, and then they came back, and the people from CBS were brought together to film the challenge, or excuse me, film the reunion. Yeah. So in my mind, this is, to your point, this is Jose and Shane trying to get that screen time because they know the editing is happening. For Final Reckoning, and also maybe a little preview. I also I think it's in both of their personalities. Shane's personality in particular, like he will go after someone, like he will not tolerate shit. And I think it's in Jose's personality that he doesn't understand how politics work. Because it sounds like he had the expectation that Shane was going to have his back throughout the season, and that they had had a conversation about they were the only two gay people on the show, and that they should like stick together, which is true. But I like if that's the case, that's the case. That's what their understanding was going to be. But also that Shane's loyalty at the end of the day is going to lie with people like Aneesa and CT and Wes, who he's known forever. And, like, I don't know if you saw this, actually. We haven't discussed it. On Twitter, Shane tweeted about how much he loves Wes because... Okay. They were all out at the bar one night. I mean, loves Wes in general, but like to underscore that point, someone was picking a fight or being rude with Shane, and Wes apparently jumped over a table or the bar or whatever to fight the guy, to like defend Shane. Yeah. And this is one of the reasons why people like Wes so much, is that he's got their back. But my point is that, like, yeah, I could totally see Shane and Jose having a conversation before filming began about, like, oh shit, like, we're the only gay men here. And Shane be like, hey, like, let me, like, show you the ropes, kid. And then, like, trying to show him the ropes, but Jose being hard to show the ropes too. Like, I can see it being the case where you say, like, hey, Jose, you should do A, B, and C. And he's like, okay. And then he does D, E, and F. Yeah. And it's one thing to say, like, hey, I'm going to help you out. And another to be like, you have my loyalty. Right? Like, you can give someone advice while staying loyal to your friends. So I think Shane did the latter, where he stayed true to his friends while trying to give advice to Jose, who was difficult to work with. So, like, I think the blow-up was dumb, but I side with Shane.
I don't sign with either of them. I think they just both look like fools, and I don't get it. I don't understand it. I feel like there's probably something else that happened between the two of them that we don't know about. Some other argument or blow up or something that we don't know about, and I don't even really care about, because like they're just arguing, and it's like about nothing, and it's just like, we're gonna have each other's backs, and it's just like, shut up. You both aren't good at the game. But I can take people being not good at the game or not being good at the political game or whatever, but like, I feel like Lil Mama on the flip side, I like how she came in and she was just like, who cares about who likes who or who doesn't like who, or everybody doesn't like this person, like grown ass people, right? Like, who cares? And I just feel like, and I know that it's a reality show, so obviously there's a level of drama and there's a level of shade that's thrown, and I get all that, right? But this was just a little bit too much. And it was basically, from a viewer's perspective, based off nothing, right? Like, there was nothing to it. It was just these two just arguing and screaming for camera time, right? Like, getting up and doing a full twirl and getting up and like yelling in someone's face. And, you know, that's one of those things where, you know, you can't get up and yell in someone's face. It's not a normal way to deal with issues unless you're planning on taking that to the next level.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I just found it completely weird, and I don't know if it was contrived or what's going. It just was annoying to me. I don't even want to talk about it anymore. I'm so annoyed.
Well, then let's move on
What'd you make of Kayla? Kayla kind of had an interesting episode as well, and it was funny because we spent some time last week bigging up Kayla, singing her praises about how well she does in challenges, and she doesn't give up, and she's a good character, this, that, and the third. And then basically, it almost seemed like you sit her beside Ashley in the reunion show, and it's now just time to stir up drama. Because it seemed like that's all she was doing, right? She's just throwing shade at everybody, laughing at like rude comments, it seemed odd. It seemed very odd.
Well,
and then she got up at one point and left because she's like, I'm not going to have this flipped around on me. And it was like, wait, what? So you can say whatever you want to someone else and scream in someone else's face, but then when they flip it around on you, you're going to get up and leave? That didn't make any sense to me.
I think she's still salty about things that happened on Final Reckoning, because Ashley and Jose are both on Final Reckoning. I think Ashley just as a mercenary. But okay. Jose is, like, seemed to be alluding to, like, things that were still fresh from Final Reckoning, whatever they may be.
Yeah.
So we'll see how it pans out.
Totally.
But, like, I think that's just carryover. And that she's still heated, and, like, she's becoming a veteran of these shows. Like, she's in that weird sophomore phase. But I don't think she's figured out what Wes and CT have figured out, where if you just keep your mouth shut, you're not really giving them ammunition. And that you can go on the show and, like, be a character on the show without embarrassing yourself.
Yeah. And further to that point, right? Like, going back to Louise in comparison to what Ashley and what's her name? Kayla were just doing on that reunion show, right? And what you just said, like, Louise didn't speak that much, but when she did, it was potent, right? And she was, the question I think was like, why didn't or Ashley, why didn't you get along with Louise and Casper or whatever? And Ashley's going through this whole thing, and first off, she's just wrong, talking about how, like, Louise wasn't playing her own game, she was playing Casper's game, and going on and on and on. And Louise just simply was like, yeah, of course you would think that, but then again, you weren't there because you were sent home so early. And I was like, ooh, shots fired. I liked it, right? Like, it was, and there's no comeback to that because it was just a factual chirp, right? Like,
yeah,
that I thought was good, right? Because it just contrite. She wasn't angry in how she said it. She said it just calm and cool. Shout out to Louise. I liked it. I like that a lot.
Me too.
My question for you, do you think Jose was actually throwing challenges, or was he just terrible?
I think he was just terrible. I think he was just terrible.
Man, that was too funny.
There was one other thing that really interested me, and that was we got a little peek into the love lives of the challenge. The CVS cast members. But in particular, Tori confirmed that she and Jordan are dating, which I don't know if you follow either of them on social media. That's very clear that they're dating. But interesting that she, like...
And Casper told us that too in our interview.
Yeah. And I think Wes did too. But the other thing is that Cam kind of denied that she and Leroy are dating, where I thought that was just, like, very clear that they were dating, but now I'm not so sure.
Who knows? I can't keep up, but it is entertaining. That is for sure. The drama is often entertaining.
It is.
And I feel like we'll continue on the next season as well of the Final Reckoning. It just seems like there's so much going on. Just like, as you said, if you follow any of these people on Twitter, especially Kayla or Marie and, that whole crew, and Cara Maria, it just seems like there's a lot of smoke.
Oh, yeah.
I can't wait to see it. But, yeah, always drama-filled.
I gotta tell you that Twitter is lit right now. The people are so angry with Marie, and it's really not clear to me as to why. I mean,
Well,
it's
this is what I'm saying, right? We talked a lot last week about the trailer and why the trailer wasn't that good. And I said I think it's because they're trying to figure out right now what they're going to show, how they're going to show it, how much of, whatever this online debate over what's name Paulie cheating on his girlfriend or messing around with whoever on the show.
Yeah.
All of these things and how that's going to fit into the actual season. So, like, we don't know what's actually going on. We just know that all these people are beefing online. And by people, I mean Cara Maria and Kayla and Marie, right? Like, it's just the normal stuff that's always going on. But it's heightened right now because obviously stuff happened during the season. But we don't know what's going to be shown, how that's going to be shown.
I have a theory. Because they did have another trailer. I think it's basically the same trailer that we had before. But having rewatched it, I have a theory myself.
Okay.
I think that the first 4 or 5 episodes, or however long, let's say 4 or 5 episodes, I think the drama is going to center around Brittany and Chuck. So they're making the trailer about Brittany and Chuck because in the long run, I think they're not... I doubt that they're going to make it through the full season. And I bet...
Yeah.
I even wonder if one of them quits or gets kicked off. Because there's a lot of scenes of Chuck flipping out outside of the house. Like, it's clearly nighttime, but he's outside the house. Which to me indicates that he's going to get bounced for some reason, or like he's going to quit. The other thing is that there's all this Brittany and Chuck drama, but we don't see Brad at all.
True. Very true.
So I wonder, how long does Brad last? And what happens... Like, what happens between him, Chuck, and Brittany? Because I can't imagine Brittany and Chuck getting in an argument and Brad not inserting himself in some way.
Interesting point. Very interesting. I like that theory.
I'm not sure that it's worth doing an MVP for a reunion special.
No, that doesn't really... Yeah, I won't say that there's an MVP, but there's definitely an LVP.
Ooh.
And that would be, to me, it's Jose and Shane.
Interesting.
I was just like, that was annoying to me. Super annoying. Kayla probably would get the bronze medal in the LVP category. But yeah, I mean, at the same time, as much as I'm complaining and saying how annoyed I was by it, in terms of a viewer and like, just something to talk about, or it made me feel something, right? And if I dislike something, it still made me feel something, meaning it still did its job in terms of a television show, right? In terms of a reality show. So kudos to them for making TV, but shame on them for coming off as like horrible people.
Yes, absolutely. I agree with what you're saying. So now, God help me if there's like a part 2 of this reunion. I don't know what I'm going to do with myself. I think it's all done. I think we now get our 2-week break.
Okay.
Which I'm excited for. I love the challenge, but you and I have recorded something like 50 consecutive episodes, and I think we've earned a bit of a break.
Hey, John, let me tell you something, okay? The viewers don't care about the process. They just care about the final product. Nobody cares about how it gets done. Nobody cares about any of that stuff. They just care about the product, okay?
Yeah.
What happens on the end? How are they listening to it? That's all that matters. They don't care about us and how we put it together. Nobody cares.
I don't even know what to do with that, Sheldon.
I was being a viewer mocking.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I gotta tell you, that is true. I will, more so for my full-time job, I get tweets all the time where people are like, no one cares. I'm like, thanks. Cool.
Yeah.
Just keep clicking.
Speaking of the trailer, though, Did we talk about this last week? The trailer, you brought up the trailer,
Yes.
right? Did I bring up how our guy LT had a point about the trailer, and he was like, nothing beats the this season on trailer. That's always the thing.
Well, that's my point, is that I think they're saving the Cara Maria drama and the Marie drama for that trailer. Like, I think they're spreading the drama out between trailers because they know that Brittany and Chuck's blow up is going to shine brightly but be short.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, we'll see. We'll see, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm excited. I'm excited for July 10th and the debut of the challenge. I was about to say Champs versus, but the challenge Final Reckoning. Can't wait.
Can't wait.
I'm in.
You can get me on Twitter at JChidleyHill, and the same place on Instagram at JChidleyHill.
You can find me on Twitter at Shell Alexander, on Instagram, and on YouTube, actually, at Sheldon Alexander.
Oh, there you go. YouTube shout out.
Yeah, shout out to the YouTube viewers as well. Shout out.
Until 2 weeks from now, this was You Killed It.
You killed